welcome to episode 3 of Get to the Chedda. I am here once again, and alongside me is our guru of all things violent, Mr. Malcolm Martin. Good evening, Malcolm. How are you today?
Evening, Matt. Very good, thank you, mate. Looking forward to this one.
Yes, this should be a good one. Now, for those of you who have not been following us, and why ever not, you can actually watch the previous episodes on the Screen One YouTube channel. We previously covered Commando, which was great fun, and then you would have recently seen Bloodsport. And tonight, or today, or as you're watching now, we are delving into the world of the shady, secretive world of former CIA agent, man with a past, cop with a past, Steven Seagal's Hard to Kill.
Steven Seagal is hard to kill.
Take that to the bank.
Or, as I prefer to call it, damn near impossible to kill. Because as we will go on, you will realise that Steven Seagal is pretty much indestructible. So, any opening thoughts, Malcolm, before we kick on and start discussing the film?
Well, two things, Matt. I think for the first time, I mean, we've both said how much, even today, we still love Commando and Bloodsport.
Mm-hmm.
I think rewatching as we do for this podcast, it's the first one where I'm thinking, actually, hard to kill. We both said hard to watch.
Yeah,
it's where I found it difficult, but it still holds such good memories for me because you and I spoke about this previously. And as you know, I saw this film on holiday in America months and months before it was released in the UK. And I did a write-up for it. I was an aspiring journalist. I sent my write-up for it to Combat Magazine, which at the time was the biggest martial arts magazine in the country. They loved the review, asked me, could I do more? I sent in 2 more reviews, and from that point forward, I became their video reviewer, amassed a huge collection, hence why we're doing this, my knowledge. And it all stems from the review I sent in of this film, which at the time, I saw it in its opening week of release, I loved. As you and I said, the whole thing about Get to the Chedda is dissecting films that we loved.
Absolutely.
And I saw this in the States, was jazzed about it, wrote the review, sent it to Combat. They replied, but the point here is that night watching it in Florida, I thought, wow, doesn't get much better than this. Actually, it gets a whole lot better than this.
Actually, it gets a whole lot worse when you watch it back.
It's a whole lot worse than Steven, sadly. But so that's my opening thoughts, mate. This one's very nostalgic for me.
Yeah. I think this was quite a hard decision for us because in this year, when it came out, it was, I believe, 1990. Yes, it was 1990. All Steven Seagal had was Above the Law, which over here in the UK was known as Nico. But over here, he had 3 movies released in the 1 year. So Above the Law, Nico went straight to video. Then, because this film, as we will talk about shortly, did so well in the States, it actually got a cinema release over here. And that was probably his big opening. It was really big. And then directly after that was the 20th Century Fox film, Marked for Death, which I think we can agree we probably think is the better one, Marked for Death, but we decided to go to Hard to Kill. So it was quite a hard decision for us which one to actually choose, but we've gone with Hard to Kill for reasons that will become very clear as we go along. And maybe one day we'll come back to the other 2, depending on how popular the series is. We might get time because there's an awful lot of films we're going to cover and an awful lot of films I'm sure we're going to miss throughout. So I suppose, I mean, mentioning Above the Law, the reason it was called Nico over here, and you will enlighten everybody.
Yeah, at the time, by the time 1990 hit, video, VHS, was really coming into stride with Blockbuster and people like this. And Cynthia Rothrock had made a movie, Above the Law, a huge video hit in this country. Cynthia Rothrock. I used to own, back in the day, a video
You used to
library.
own Cynthia Rothrock?
No,
Really?
no one owns Cynthia Rothrock. I used to own a video library, and she was right up there in terms of rentals with the likes of Van Damme, Chuck Norris, and Above the Law was a huge video hit here. So in this country, they called it Nico. And it seems strange because you look at the first 4 movies, for Seagal, and it seemed like they wanted the three-word buzz, wasn't it? It was Above the Law, Hard to Kill, 7 Year Storm, which became Hard to Kill, Marked for Death, Out for Justice.
Yeah,
it was like
Fire Down Below after that.
It was like a sort of like mantra, but it was because of Above the Law that here it was Nico, and again, his debut is a better film than Hard to Kill, 7 Year Storm.
I just think you're above the law. You ain't above mine.
Nico.
But for me, you and I have discussed like the beginnings for Schwarzenegger, and what I found fascinating was last time out, we discussed how Van Damme came as the total package immediately in Bloodsport. And this is what I like about Seagal in the same way. He hits us as a total package. What Warner Brothers did brilliantly was drag you into where does the myth end and the man begin, or vice versa. We were told he really had a covert past.
Covert agent trained to survive in Vietnam.
He won't say it, but he won't deny, because he never said he was ex-CIA. This was the great thing in interviews, but he would never deny it either. And Warner Brothers milked that really what we're looking at is possibly fictionalized accounts of the real man's life. Outside of that, so as a character, we had him come fully formed. You and I have always laughed about this. Is he American? Is he Italian? Is he, is he Irish? It depends on the film. But he's always got
his hair slicked back. Yeah.
And the ponytail at first.
Ponytail.
He's got links to the mob, who he loves, who will kiss him on each cheek.
And family in the mafia.
But they both have a code as well. If you mess with me, I'm going to come for you. You're going to come for me. It's just the way it is, cabron. And he did that as well as when he needed it. He could always phone a shady mob contact who loved him to bits, but was just on the wrong side. And again, do you notice in virtually all three of his opening films, when it's time to hide his wife or family if they don't get killed, it's always with a shady mob member who will take them away somewhere to a safe house. God bless them. And then later in the day, he'd always get a meeting with the Don in the Don's own backyard, surrounded by goons, where he tells the Don how much respect he's got for him. But because of his past and his action, the Don knows that even here in this room, drinking coffee together, he could kill him. So he comes fully formed. And what I also like is the action comes fully formed. We all know one of the things there's been a lot of crap talked about Seagal. Probably a lot of it is true. We know about how his career went downhill. We know about allegations. There's so much you can talk about. But one of the things that was undeniable, the man taught Aikido in Japan. In Japan, his Aikido was impeccable. And what he did is he took the gentle art. And the idea of the gentle art is, as you work them, if they don't move, the bone snaps. So they go with you. You've got no choice. What he did in the movies was took it to its natural conclusion, snap those bones. I mean, if ever we talk about bone snapping movies, it's Seagal. It was the total opposite of the wonderful choreography we saw in like the Van Damme movies, the Hong Kong of Jackie Chan and Sammo Hung. This guy came in, messed shit up, and left very quickly. And it was a breath of fresh air at the time. Yeah. And out of all the actors we're going to talk about, Seagal's story saddens me the most. But to come like Van Damme did, fully filmed, and hit you so hard and fast in his opening movies, I was so excited right up to Under Siege becoming the biggest action film of that year.
Hard to Kill. So, we're Hard to Kill. Seagal plays Mason Storm. Seriously, we could probably do an entire series on stupid character names. I mean, we've gone from John Matrix, can't knock Frank Dukes because he's actually a real person, but then Mason Storm. There wasn't computer name generators back then, so how did they come up with these names? Did they just like look out the window and go Storm? And I'm
maybe they came with the title first, 7 years.
7 year Storm. Yeah, which actually is a bit pants. When you put it in the film, it's just rubbish.
Well, it wasn't a storm. He was asleep for 7 years.
It was asleep.
7 years slumber.
Slumber. That's what they should have said. Yeah. So our hero is a cop with connections and a dark past. The film opens. He is on the dockside he's on the dockside, and he's filming a meeting with some jabronis who are meeting up, talking drug deals. And there's a shady person who has his back to him, but has a nice little hat on, and is talking. And he clearly is the big player in all of this. And Seagal mentions on his super up to the date VHS recorder, which has a giant boom microphone on it. It looks like a laser gun. I mean, it's like that, literally almost 3D, before 3D ever came about. And he's got a separate sound recorder. I mean, the whole point of VHS was it was all in one. And he has the microphone attached to the... Anyway, minor issues here. And he's wearing a pair of Sony headphones, which he flicks because he can't get the sound on it. I don't know what that actually does, because whenever I flicked my Sony headphones, they just fell off back in the day. Walkman headphones. Anyway, he turns around, this shady character turns around, and the dock lights catch the side of his face, and we see that it is William Sadler, or Bill Sadler, who later went on to be the bad guy in Die Hard 2 and many, many other films. Brilliant actor. This is the other thing. These action films that we love, they all have decent actors in them somewhere. Everyone's got like I mean, you could argue Kelly LeBrock is the decent actor in this film. But we'll say William Sadler for the sake of argument. So you've got William Sadler, who clearly is somebody of note, but we'll come back to that later. At this point, Mr. Seagal still having problems, flicking the headphones, and he knocks over his sound recorder or something and makes a noise. So the others turn around and go, "I thought you said this dock was clean." And then all hell breaks loose. Mr. Seagal runs off, hides behind a box, one of the crates. He hides behind the crate. Again, a bit like the Arnold Schwarzenegger thing, hiding behind the wall. No one sees him, despite him being in a great big open space. Anyway, two of these stupid idiots with guns walk up to the boxes, and they soon get their first taste of aikido and broken arms. And then he legs it off to his car that is parked at the far end of the dock in plain sight. It's like hiding around the block. It's actually by the entrance. You can see the car as he runs to it. He jumps in it, zooms off.
Matt, can you imagine the conversation afterwards? "I thought you said this place was clean." Well, it was, apart from that car parked right
and that bloke who was wandering around.
Past.
So, how come you're not watching the Oscars tonight?
It's Oscars night, by the way. We find out that it is Oscars night because he's in a shop.
Oh, the shop sequence now. There's a couple of things that are poor about this, but there's also something that sets up everything we talk about the Seagal style of fighting. Now, we know the goons must have known as well, because there is the fortuitously placed crash mats for them.
Yes. In the shop. It's quite handy of them, actually, to have these kind of rubber mats in the shop, because they look very much out of place, because they're a different colour to the floor.
But what I love, Matt, is it sets up that bone crunching style, the way he messes them all up big time. But also it sets up the ludicrous nature of the film. You've got the old guy behind the counter. The wise guys come in. Seagal immediately clocks there's going to be trouble. He knows. You look at these guys, you know there's going to be trouble. Does he say?
Just one second. You said they're wise guys. That would imply that they were Italian mobsters. They're not. They're Mexican gangbangers, because they use the word Hesse quite a lot.
Oh. You remember me, viejo? Yeah, that's right. You remember.
Look like you grew some hair, man, since we last seen you.
Yeah, but not a lot, eh? Where's the rope?
Either way, he knows these are bad boys. Now, the look on his face, just like you did there, he gives that sort of, you've been studying the Seagal style of acting there.
I have, yeah.
Does he decide to take them out? No. What does he wait for? The poor old guy behind the counter to get blown away. Then he steps forward.
Then he steps in.
To be honest, Matt, when he does, the style of action that we talked about is summed up beautifully in that opening scene.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's knives flying, and he's doing his sidestepping and turning and throwing, and then broken arm. is very well done. That sequence, it just sets up the opening of his film, doesn't it? It says, look, I can fight, even if I'm in a waistcoat with my hair greased back with a ponytail and I'm holding a bottle of champagne because it's Oscars night and this film is clearly not going to get an Oscar.
I'm going to go down on my knees.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, he does the knees thing.
How about this? I'll get down on my knees. Is this any better?
When we talk about Ludacris, Matt, we cut away afterwards to him walking out and everybody in there is wasted.
Looks like you won the Oscar tonight, Storm.
Coming up.
Thanks.
All right.
And the cops just give that, oh, Storm, what have you been doing? But he's still got the champers and the toy for his kid. He's just looted the shop. One, he didn't save the guy. He knew they
nicked the stuff.
And then he carries on taking the stuff. And he just walks out. And they go, Storm, what are you like? We got to go clear your mess up again. And he's thinking, I don't care. I've got some champagne and a little unicorn for my kid. I'm off home to bang the missus. And you're just thinking. And then what follows, Matt, is 15 minutes. All that was missing from the scene when he gets home is Liberace in the corner playing the piano. And that wonderful
and the
scene.
Saxophone. Don't forget the 80s saxophone.
Oh, the 80s saxophone.
But the weird thing is, when he walks in his house, and this is something I picked up when I watched it when we were preparing for this, it kind of weirds me out a little bit, is the lighting in his house. It's got this weird kind of like, is it red or blue light? It's like a red or blue light shade. It's not dark and it's not light. There's like a weird gel light they've got. And it's almost telling you this is going to get a little bit seedy, even though it's his wife. And, he's in the room. His kid's still awake. And he goes, oh, you're not asleep. I want you to read me a bedtime story. All that nonsense. He gives him a teddy bear, and the kid looks really unimpressed with the teddy bear. And he goes, right, go to sleep, because me and your mum. And off he goes into the room with his mum, or his wife, sorry, not his mum, his wife. And that would have been a very different movie. That's a very different movie. So there he is. Anyway, while this is all going on, Captain Uber Agent with his wife and his son in bed, some shady individuals turn up at his house, get in the door without making any noise whatsoever, and are creeping up the stairs. Now, they go up the stairs past the son's bedroom, right? And this is the other weird. They've got the weird lighting, the kind of red light district thing going on. When they get into the bedrooms, into his bedroom, the light's on, right? Normal light, not this red light. I don't know where this red light comes from, but anyway, so they get into the room. And, Mr. Seagal's a bit, I don't know if he's post-coital or in-coital. I'm not sure what he's at some point, anyway, because she sits up, did the 80s, I've got the blanket thing over me. And then she gets shot. He goes berserk, grabs one of them, snaps their fingers like that, which is probably the most iconic bit of it, where he grabs the guy and goes, like... that, because this comes back later on. It's you have to remember that, because it comes back later on. So they do that, and they shoot him multiple times. They shot his wife once and she dies. They shoot him multiple times, like 1, 2, 3, all over the place. He falls down. Now, during all of this, little Johnny, or whatever his name is, Johnny, Sammy, I don't know what his son's called. Anybody know what his son's called? Anyone?
No, I don't.
100 points. Sonny. It's Sonny. His son is called Sonny. That's what he's called. He just happens to get out of bed, not while his mum and dad are doing whatever they were doing previously, and not while the guys were walking up the stairs past his room, which didn't listen. He then wanders into the room to see his parents mutilated, shot, whatever. He then makes a noise and goes, drops the teddy bear. I mean, how ungrateful is that? Drops the teddy bear his dad's just bought him, stole. Stole. He then runs, legs it, jumps out the back window, never to be seen again, or so we think, never to be seen again. I mean, firstly, how, what is he, 8, 9, jumps out of the back window of his house without breaking his legs, Lord only knows. And as it turns out, these assailants turn out to be the local corrupt coppers. There's like 4 of them. How they couldn't catch him, again, is beyond me. Or shot him from the window, or anyway. So then,
they didn't just go up to Seagal and put a bullet in his brain.
Well,
to make
more sensible.
This is Mason Storm we're talking about.
Yeah.
When you talk about everything and all the lighting there, the top cop in the whole city, so probably the most hated and feared by the criminals, has not got a security system for his own house. as you said, the more you think about it, the boy jumps almost like face first out of the window.
Out the window. Yeah, it's not even. Yeah,
and
crazy. So then we cut to the hospital scene, and O'Malley, which is I couldn't really work out who O'Malley is. O'Malley is boss, his mate, someone else in the department. I couldn't quite. They never really kind of. He seems to be someone in charge, but not the man in charge. So they're at the hospital. The press suddenly turn up because a cop's been shot. Don't really see that these days. And then also, for some bizarre reason, Mr. William Sadler himself, who turns out to be a senator who is up for, he's just become the senator of the state, and he's got ideas on becoming president. He's there, and again, at this point, I don't think he knows it was Storm. The other people know it was Storm, and that's the other thing. They never really explained how they found out it was Mason Storm, who I think he makes a phone call, doesn't he, or something. Doesn't matter. The setup is he's been shot. He's now in a coma. He gets wheeled in, and O'Malley makes sure nobody else knows apart from this one medical dude.
Your man's alive, Lieutenant.
Who else knows he isn't dead?
No one, just the people in here.
Right. I want to see each one of them before they leave the room. And no one else comes in here as of right now. You got that?
Of course, that wouldn't be written down on medical records anywhere, or the nurses would go, "Oh, this guy's still alive. We need to sort this out." Nothing of that. No, one medical dude who may have been a doctor, may have been an orderly. We don't know. We never find out. It doesn't really matter. Not important. He's now in a coma. So now we cut 7 years forward, and Mr. William Sadler is now the senator, and he is now priming himself for becoming president with his catchphrase, isn't it? And you can take that to the bank.
The bank.
Yes, there we go. That's his catchphrase, which is again is very important, because I think he said that on the dock before he said, "I thought this dock was clean." So there's kind of key elements here. Anyway, so now we cut to the hospital 7 years later, where we find Mason Storm, Mr. Steven Seagal, still in a coma, and he starts to wake up. So Kelly LeBrock rushes off to find it, knocks over a cup of coffee that she's just been given by a friend who's just left for the day. And she finds a phone number, rings it up. It's for O'Malley, but he's left. So one of the other police guys there convinces her to tell him what it's all about. And they then find out that Mason Storm, although they don't know his name, at this point it's John Doe. They figure it out somehow. Hang on a minute, 7 years ago, that's when this happened. That Mason Storm is still alive, and abruptly send an assassin to kill him.
Matt, this is the point of the movie where everything falls apart. It's from the introduction.
Oh, sorry.
From the introduction of Barbara Windsor. Kelly LeBrock. Carry on nursing. Let's backtrack a little bit. You mentioned about the gurney. When she shot these away, she knocks all the equipment over. The drip.
That's right. Yes.
She almost kills him.
Oh, hang on, because there's a really awful thing that she does just before he wakes up. She has a little pussycat kitten.
That's it. Would you like a little pussy?
Yeah.
Would you like a little pussy, JD? She's a little bitty pussy. Look what I've got here. Sweet. Shh, 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 shh.
Oh, man. Yeah.
What is that? Is that alternative therapy? The first lines out of her mouth are, would you like a little pussy? And then as I said, he wakes up, she knocks the gurney over, the drip. You're looking for Naked Gun style elements.
I was going to say, it's a bit like in the airplane when they knock the thing out the girl's arms. And
I was waiting for Leslie Nielsen to come in as the doctor and go, "Nurse,
This woman has to be gotten to a hospital.
A hospital? What is it?
It's a big building with patients, but that's not important right now.
And then we get the most bizarre sequence, Matt, that you and I are still gobsmacked over. This hospital, it's got one security guard, one orderly, and one nurse.
Two, because a mate went off. Don't forget.
And goes through a virtually empty, huge hospital. And still, he can't outrun a man on a gurney.
With a mop.
And it just gets even more absurd. And then when Barbara Windsor, Kelly LeBrock, realizes he's telling the truth and decides to help him, we get Matt, I can only believe that it was meant to be intentionally humorous, her trying to drive that gurney with him.
Hold tight. Sorry.
And hitting everything and the faces she pulls.
I think you're missing a whole sequence here. We're not missing the whole sequence, but so he's been in a coma for 7 years, right? He's got no use of his legs. His arms seem to work quite well. Now, no muscle wastage or anything like that, which is generally what happens. But somewhere, I can't remember where, because the janitor gets shot. He manages to get the mop, and he's pushing himself like he's on a gondola around the corridors perfectly, manages to hit the button on the sliding door, gets in the lift. Now, the lift is the single funniest part of this whole sequence. He gets in the lift. The assassin that has seen him is chasing him, and he runs up to the door. And because the doors are shutting, he stands there and goes, "I'll get you, Storm." Not press the button, because then the doors open again, and then you can shoot him and finish the job. He stands and watches. Lift goes down, doors open. Kelly LeBrock goes, Kelly LeBrock, and goes, "Oh," like that. Gets in the thing. Then they're down to the car. I mean, wheeling down to the car. I mean, I honestly thought it was going to, again, a bit like Naked Gun, where O.J. Simpson goes down on the wheelchair. Bonk. You thought you were going to see his body go through into and land in the car.
But Matt, when we look at the inept nurse, you talk about the scene with the gurney and the lift. What about the reason Kelly LeBrock is safe from being shot when she's gathering the medicines? Now, do not nurses have trolleys for medicine? What's the scene like that? Is carrying the medicine. It's over her head in height. She doesn't think to use a trolley. She's doing this balancing act with all these medicines. And you're thinking, you know why? Because she's the only nurse there in the whole hospital. She's got so much to do. But being carry-on nurse, she doesn't even use a trolley. And it's when he sees she's distracted, it saves her life. But that one scene alone, my jaw dropped. When she walks out, I thought, where's the team behind the cameras going, this just looks, I wonder what they were saying to each other.
This really doesn't make sense.
No. And then, as you said, that the gurney stuff, it's obviously attempted humor, but it's so camp, so awful.
You know what? I honestly think it's not. I honestly think that they think this is part of the action sequence, that he can, he's like bionic or something, that he can wake up from a coma and get around a building. I mean, it's still crazy to me that they get out the front door without anybody stopping them and going, "Where are you taking that patient?" Because he's still on the bed. I mean, not only is she stealing a patient, she's stealing a bed. And
no one else is in the hospital.
He had a drip in his arm, and he was on a machine. He's been pulled off that. The alarm should still be going. I mean, somewhere there's a hospital in America that's still got an alarm and a drip dripping on the floor. And then they just get in his car and drive off. And she then just takes him to, where do they get? Do they go to his house or do they go to her?
No, he goes to a friend of hers, big Japanese.
That's it. She's house sitting. That's it. So she goes to, she just takes a complete random stranger who she's been shaving weirdly, and giving kittens to, because none of the other patients got this treatment. Anyway, gets to this lovely country shack, looks like Skywalker Ranch, George Lucas's house. It's, rolling fields, a little bit of a mountain in the background. I mean, it looks like she's driven to Colorado, for goodness sake. And I think they're in downtown LA at the beginning of the film. Who knows? The geography is a bit like when they do films in England, where they drive from Buckingham Palace. Next thing they're at Regent Street, and just doesn't make sense.
She actually says to him, doesn't she? She tries to feed him, and he says, "No, I can feed myself." I think he's realised what sort of nurse she is by now, and he just doesn't trust her.
He doesn't get poisoned, probably.
But also, by this point, as you said, one phone call, they twig that it's Storm. They get to this virtually empty hospital where only maybe 3 or 4 staff, of which 2 are now dead, and they immediately manage to convince everyone that the man that was in the coma, that's a virtual paraplegic, did the murders. So he's framed for those murders as well.
Pin the murders on him. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
The broom. Did he kill them with the broom? I mean, the man
mocked them to death. He obviously, cleaned their face so much that they died and blood came out.
But the news clip says that, Storm has committed these murders, and you think, it just gets worse. It's like that middle hour, Matt. It's just it's an absolute mess.
It is literally hard to watch. So anyway, so now we're at this ranch. Now we go into the obligatory
training sequence
of him recovering. Now, again, I don't think this is a long period of time, purely because of the way the events of the film work. So he goes from barely being able to walk to he cuts his own hair, cuts this stupid thing she's put on his face off, does his hair up, finds a leather jacket that fits him in a stranger's hair. Oh no, she goes to his house. No, hang on. Where does she get the clothes from? Oh, it's out the cupboards, isn't it? The bloke who lives there, similar size to him. There's something weird going on here. So yeah, he happens to have a leather jacket and a pair of really tight denim trousers, and some black shoes that fit him as well. I mean, how convenient is that they, have his wardrobe, and hair gel. And so he does a little bit. He sticks some acupuncture needles in himself with lovely smells coming off him. I mean, it looks like he's actually smoking weed blocks, but who knows. So he does that a few times. You see some scars in his back where the bullet holes were, which is where he shoves the needles. He does the whole Rocky thing of having a newspaper clipping of him being shot, and then he goes out into the back garden, digs a hole with this whole crimper thing I've never seen before, puts a block of wood in, wraps some rope around it. I mean, he finds all this lying about. I mean, obviously he's on a branch.
And then he starts punching Japanese house. It's the Makiwara that he punches.
Yeah, he starts punching it. He starts slowly speeding up, and then you see him taking a light jog up a mountain. I mean, again, that was the Rocky IV thing, wasn't it? Running up mountains without breaking a sweat. And then in the middle of all this, or towards the end of all this, so he's become super cop again in a literal, what I can only assume is like 2 hours, because obviously super cop, bionic, all that kind of stuff. He then meets back up with Kelly LeBrock, who's in the tightest dress I've ever seen. Well, I've probably seen tight, but at the time it was the tightest dress I'd ever seen. I mean, it literally looked like a piece of elastic that was about that long, and she just stretched it over her body. And she walks in with a rose randomly. He's just woken up from a 7-year coma, so he would kind of remember his wife. Within a couple of hours of waking up, he's off with Kelly LeBrock. Forget his dead wife. She's gone. Got Kelly LeBrock here. Let's go for it. And then it's the most uncomfortable scene, because obviously they were married at the time. And in fact, Kelly LeBrock hadn't done much acting. She retired from acting. I never knew she started in the first place acting, but I shouldn't be so rude. But yeah, so she's doing fake, but this scene is really uncomfortable, because I mean, he's groping her in all the places, and they're giving each other a tongue lash. I mean, you honestly look like you've interrupted something when you're watching this bit. I mean, it's like their personal time or something. It's just, I mean, it made me feel ill watching it. I'm literally like, should we just skip this bit? And then we cut to the next day, where Kelly LeBrock goes off to find O'Malley, because somehow Seagal's figured out that he's retired, so that she should go and find his mother, who wouldn't answer the phone. So she drives to wherever she drives, to the nursing home in the middle of nowhere, walks over this weird
the bad
bridge.
Guys know to wait for her. Don't forget.
Yeah, they're following her. Yeah, they're following
her. So they know, if they're following her, did they not know that she went to this house sitting already? Yeah. We go through this whole extra 10, 15 minutes of her leading them back. How could she lead them back to somewhere they didn't know she was at?
And also, why, if they were following us, so they must have known where she started from.
Exactly.
Because, well, this is one up. Now, see, this is where it starts to make a little bit of sense, because the film features quite a lot of edits. Warner Brothers wanted it shorter. It was a lot longer. And one of the scenes that were cut were Kelly LeBrock's character, I think it was called Andy or something like that. Her black colleague is captured, tortured, and killed by them. This is a scene that's cut out. So I think probably in that exposition shot, she tells them where she is. I don't know why they didn't go in there, but anyway, they follow her, and she finds this house, and she's talking to this woman who everybody except Kelly LeBrock clearly realizes is O'Malley's mother. Everybody knows it, apart from her. She's going, couldn't find her. And in the time it takes her to get back, O'Malley's turned up at the house. He found it. He got a dress. She left an address. She found it, and O'Malley's there, handing him guns and hand grenades and God knows what else. And he, that's where he utters the That's where he utters the line when they're talking about getting them because they're not happy about it and they're going to get them. And he explains that his son ran to his house that night. So a 10-year-old in his pajamas, not only does he do somersaults out of windows, but he can manage to run 3 miles down a road to go and find his dad's mate from work's house. I mean, I don't know where some of my colleagues live that I work with. So that's pretty impressive.
Did he keep him in a basement? He didn't go to school.
No, he sent him to private school. He did say that. He sent him to private school. He did mention this. There was one bit of continuity in it anyway. And he changed his name so no one would know who he was. So that's how they got away with that bit. So at this point, he utters my favourite line, which I believe is in the trailer as well, where he's got the gun in his hand and he's showing him that, yeah, I'm good now. And he goes,
"Then wasn't the time. Now's the time."
Bang, 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 and takes out all the tin cans and everything on the fence. Oh, and the bricks and brilliant. Waste half your bullets, mate. Nice one. You've only been given like a couple of clips. So that all goes. O'Malley goes off. Kelly LeBrock comes back. And guess what? All the ones following her are in the compound with their, automatic rifles and whatever creeping about. However, Steven Seagal obviously has been to the Arnold Schwarzenegger's Commando School of Smelling because he seems to know they're there before they're there. And then another mass fight brawl, people flying through glass tables, off balconies, into wardrobes, broken arms, broken legs. They get in their little Jeep, they're driving out really quickly. There's a bloke who's somehow climbed on top of this roof over this sort of archway they have to drive for, and he's standing there with a downward shooting point and misses them completely. And then they drive across the field, break some fences just to make it look, a bit more rugged, and off they go, off into the distance. And these dudes who, again, second chance of killing, or third chance if you include the assassin, third chance of killing him, completely screw it up. And
Matt, this was one of the things about the 80s, the late 80s and the early 90s, was they felt the need to get the excesses in of like the gunpowder, the firepower, the arms and everything. But what they didn't realize was that, in retrospect, just how stupid it looks. As you said, they were so geared up with so much ammunition and so much armory. And as you said, that one, it stands out for me. As you said, he's above them. He can't miss the car. He could have thrown his gun on top of it and he would have still hit it. And the amount of shots fired, it seems to me like that we went through a phase in the late 80s, early 90s, where glass, furniture, squibs, everything had to explode. The head down, the running, and they still missed you. You ran in a straight line. They still couldn't figure out where you were going.
Yeah.
And that fantastic scene in the Jeep, two guys just suddenly, they shoot off in the Jeep, yet two guys suddenly just appear.
Yeah.
And he knocks them both out of the way in opposite.
Oh, yeah, and they do the big somersault through the veranda thing. Yeah.
And then you get Kelly LeBrock's killer line.
Oh, I forgot to lock the door.
And it's just like, this is the other thing that I could not believe about when we revisit the 80s and 90s. The one-liners were essential. They were what made the movies. But you look at them now, the trauma they've been through, the amount of guys trying to kill them, the bullets, and she comes out with, "I forgot to shut the door," and they have a good old belly laugh over that. And you think that sums up the worst elements of that time. And still, at this point, we're still watching an incredibly bad movie.
Yeah, and probably quite into it as well. So this point, so now their Jeep's been shot up. They drive up the road and they stop by some new Hispanic gangbangers who are quite excited about having a car that's been shot up, which Seagal tells them it's hotter than the sun or something. And they're quite excited. So they swap cars. They have this really odd looking Chevrolet that's got the bouncy wheels and stuff on it. So to be inconspicuous, Kelly LeBrock and Steven Seagal get in this car and drive off. So then we go through some more exposition, and it becomes apparent that Mason needs to get hold of the tape and the videotape that prove his innocence, and that because while he's training, he catches out the corner of his eye at this house the TV, which has Senator Vernon Trent's advert for him going for president, and it's saying, "And you can take that to the bank," and he looks at the TV like that, and then,
"You can take that to the bank."
I'm going to take you to the bank, Senator Trent.
So he's now trying to get the videotape and the audio tape and get that to a TV station. The only problem is it's in his old house. because he hid it behind the fridge. As because we see him do that when he first arrives there, he hides behind the fridge. So they turn up at this house, which is having some work done, and he's now got his jacket and his waistcoat on, and she's, office gear, and they pretend to be estate agents or something. And the woman who now owns the house just lets them in. She just acts like, yeah, sure, yeah. And she goes off with Kelly LeBrock upstairs because she's pregnant. She points out she's pregnant. So Kelly LeBrock gets her to go upstairs. Meanwhile, Mason wanders into the kitchen and just rips a hole in the wall. I mean, there's some panel boarding, which I'm amazed nobody found when they were wallpapering. There was this panel board and there was a VHS in there and a cassette tape. Anyway, he rips the wall, drops stuff all over the floor, which smashes, which brings the woman and Kelly LeBrock down to the kitchen. And Steven Seagal is standing there holding the VHS thing and the cassette tape, and he goes, I think you need new builders. No, I think you need to stop vandalizing the house, Stephen. Not only do you steal things, you're now vandalizing houses. He's got a rap sheet as long as my arm at this point. He probably did commit the murders, let's be honest. I mean, it's the only thing that's not on his list. So they sort of wander out and like, yeah, no worries, see you later, bye. And this poor woman's left with a smashed crockery on the floor, the wallpaper ripped off and like half the shelf hanging off, and he just doesn't care. So then he sends the cassette tape to the TV station, and for some bizarre reason he has to deliver the videotape in person. Don't know why. Why didn't he just send them to, and I don't even know where he got the courier from to send the cassette tape. So you would have thought give it the same person, get the same place, same time. Anyway, so then ensues a chase because his son is met with O'Malley. They're at a train station waiting for them. The other half of the super inept police combo have found O'Malley at the train station. O'Malley defends himself, ends up getting shot and dies. The son, again, legs it off down the road. Now, there's another scene that is removed from the film at this point, which is where they actually catch his son, but he manages to escape again. So the sequence where you see them running down the road, there's actually a cut sequence where they caught him and he escapes, and then that's why he ends up in Chinatown. So again, some dodgy editing going on here because it's all disjointed. And then ensues a fight where Mason realizes he's fighting the guys who killed his wife. And the reason he knows this is because he catches the guy whose fingers he broke earlier. He catches him in the same hold and recognizes his hand. I don't know if he's a palm reader now, but he recognizes the lines on it. I don't know.
You're still a loser. I remember you.
In front of all the crowd who are just standing there.
This is the thing, Matt. This is the thing about this whole sequence. This is, as cheesy as that is and as ludicrous as it is, this is the redeeming part of the movie from this point onwards, because it's got that typical 90s, when you couldn't just show a scene because we're all so dense, you have to give them a running commentary. He's got the tape.
Yeah.
They always have the big walkie-talkies. He's running down the alley. And so they're telling you all this. He's got the kids do. But the thing is, in front of that sort of like little open-air Chinese restaurant, it's Richmond Branscombe, who's a really big guy, and he was always either a heavy or a second lead good guy in lots of movies. And he was the second banana for Lorenzo Lamas in Renegade. He was his right-hand man in a long-term series as a good guy. But from that point onwards, when those two fight, you're beginning to start forgiving everything else. But even then, the fight with Branscombe is just like we love with Seagal. But they've got, as you said, they've got the whole crowd there. It's right out in the open. He's throwing him all around this Chinese restaurant. And the poor little,
it's a market street. He's throwing
because in Out for Justice, he's got the little Indian shop owner who's all like this. Whoa, and then here he's got the little Chinese guy going like this. And he throws Branscombe around, but just before he breaks his neck with that lovely reverse, he finds time to pat his adoring son on the head. His son is watching.
It's all right, Sonny. I'm just murdering somebody. If you just like to turn around a minute, yeah. You're not already traumatized from seeing your mother blown away. I'm just going to kill someone else. Hang on 1 minute.
You're going to love this. I'm just going to snap his neck. And the son
seen me in 7 years, but I'm still murdering people. Yeah.
It's a great sequence. I mean, it doesn't stand up to scrutiny, but just as an action sequence with a great actor, a big, beefy, tough guy who's in a lot of stuff, and Seagal, you start to think, this is what I wanted to watch the film for. And then we get the payoff, don't we, in the senator's home in the pool.
Oh, no, hang on. You skipped a very important moment. Now, because he's realized he's got to get to the boss level. He's got to get to the senator. He sends his son, who he's just seen for the first time after 7 years, off with a woman who his son has never met, in Kelly LeBrock, who he's, had a bit of a thing with.
Okay, she's a nurse.
Yes. Just don't eat anything she asks you if you want to eat it. So he sends his son off with this woman that not only has he forgotten the memory of his mother and, have it away with Kelly LeBrock, this poor child has just been, chased by all in sundry, and he's just sending him off with some woman going, yeah, off you go. I'm going to go down here and deal with this guy. It's the most insane thing I've ever seen. I mean, this kid jumps out of windows and runs away from people. You would have thought he would have gone, Kelly LeBrock is not a nurse. I'm sorry, this woman is dangerous. I'm going to make it I've done all right so far in my life. I don't need this woman who's probably going to get me killed. So then we cut to the senator who's in the jacuzzi with the obligatory ladies with the big boobies sitting thing, which he tells to go away when one of his last remaining surviving guards goes, he's on his way here. I mean, how he knows that, and if he does know that, why aren't they phoning the police?
Yeah, they framed him for murder. Just call the police.
Just call the police, say he's on the way. So then we're off to the mansion. Now, when we get to the mansion, Seagal just walks in. He doesn't kill anybody. There's no scene. Well, at least I don't think that maybe there's some edited scenes of him removing the last.
I've got to stop you there. Well, when he breaks it, he actually smashes some glass with his elbow.
Yeah.
Watch the scene. He smashes the glass, then just pushes the window open. Yeah, he doesn't even go in and unlock it. He doesn't even put his hand through to unlock it. He didn't
need to smash the window.
Pure
Vandalism. Yeah.
Add to the list of things that this cop just does. He's got no respect for authority.
Breaking and entering as well. Breaking and entering.
The pool hall. Yeah, exactly. The pool hall sums up what I love about that style of early Seagal action. You've got the obligatory Dan Insananto type Oriental guy who's got the two halves of the pool, and he whips them around beautifully. It's beautiful to watch. And what does Seagal do? Just boshes him over the head.
Straight through the middle.
Raiders of the Lost Ark moment. It's his Harrison Ford. It's just like, bish, have it. And it's wonderful. And
again,
that whole
see now this sequence, right? It's got 4 or 5 guys in this room playing pool, right? Which is a precursor to the Out for Justice scene, which he perfects the pool scene fight. Anyway, these guys standing around playing pool, talking about him. If they know he's on the way, why are they standing around in the ballroom? Surely they should be defending the building. Anyway, so he does away with them. He breaks some sticks and bosh, and he stabs one of them right in the throat with a half a pool cue, which was pretty violent even for back then. That was quite violent. The guys a bit like the table leg in Commando, but this time it's a pool cue through the neck. So he's done away with all of them. Now he goes and finds William Sadler, who is in his dressing gown, because he hasn't bothered to get dressed. He's still in his swimming costume. Excuse me. He's still in his swimming costume, and he's in his thing. And he tries to buy off Storm, saying, I can pay you more money, but Storm's not interested. Long story short, he kills him. He's about to kill him. He's got the gun to his head, and he goes to shoot him between the legs, fires the gun, and then goes,
I missed. I never miss. They must have been smaller than I thought.
And then all the police pour in.
No ricochets. No
ricochet, no nothing. So we've done vandalism, breaking and entering, GBH, ABH, murder. What else has he done? Stealing, theft, grand larceny. And what's the word for it? When you're dealing with stolen goods, you're passing on stolen goods with the guys. So he's done that as well. Yeah.
He's a fence as well.
Yeah, there's not a lot he hasn't done at this point. I mean, even if he's not done for the murders, he should still go to prison for what he's done.
We still have that tension. Storm, don't do it, Storm.
Don't do it, Storm. And then just as he's about to ignore them and kill him anyway, because he thinks they've come for him, Kelly LeBrock and his son run through the middle of the police cordon. None of them stop them. They run into the senator's house. I mean, how they got to the senator's house, I don't know. And I don't know why the police, who's called the police at this point. We don't know who it is. But they run through the middle of them. The police don't go, actually, lady, stop right there. They run through. And then the copper, as Kelly LeBrock and his son get there, go, we heard the tape. Would have probably been better if you'd have said that at the beginning rather than, you know, just as he's about to blow the living daylights out of William Sadler. So William Sadler goes to jail. Oh, no, he says something, doesn't he? He ends up killing him or something. I can't remember.
No, he goes to jail. He says
he goes to jail. By that point, I think I'd probably
being anally retentive, doesn't he?
Ah, that's right. Yes, you won't remain anally retentive much longer. Yes, that's correct. That's the line. So, yeah, so Storm is reunited with new wife, I suppose, old child, and everything's good. Everything's lovely. And you can take that to the bank. And that's pretty much the film. Now, again, with the edited scenes, the original ending, and I don't know why, ends up in a zoo. Because in the trailer, and the original trailer, he actually said, you actually see the scene where he shoots him and goes, and Senator, you can take that to the bank. That doesn't appear in the film. So this, I don't know why they're in a zoo. I don't know how it got to the zoo. I have no idea. I mean, I assume it's something to do with Sonny's escape from the police guys and he runs to a zoo or something. Because, again, zoos generally featured in these films. There was one in Beverly Hills Cop, one in Schwarzenegger's Eraser. Zoos were the other sort of go-to scene. It's probably cheap, I suppose, to film there. So yeah, so all is good, all is well in the world, and then I think the film ends with a clip of him going. It ends with the clip of the senator on the news going, and you can take that to the bank. End credits. As it is a whole bunch of nonsense. 90 minutes of absolute nonsense. There's no two ways about it. But it is still quite enjoyable.
There's certain factors. As I said, the action sequences, when they come, as ridiculous as they are, were a breath of fresh air. And I loved Seagal's attitude. Was where he was perpetrating this. I'm genuinely ex-CIA. I'm genuinely a badass. This is how it goes down in real life. You can't afford to have multiple attackers and do all this wonderful choreography, which makes sense. So he would break with everything. He would break or shatter something to take someone out of the equation. It was over quickly. It's still so novel seeing him so lean. The man was a thin streak of nothing, 6'4".
Yeah.
Very tall.
He was quite well built, actually. He was
well built. And to see him like that as well, and the mythology that was building, and knowing the films that were to come. As you know from our previous chats, my two personal favourites, and I think your all-time favourite, Marked for Death.
Yeah, for sure.
And Out for Justice, which I know you're not quite as keen on, but those two for me were the pinnacle of absolutely messing everyone up in the most fantastic ways. And with that,
for me, it was Marked for Death and Under Siege. I mean, I think Under Siege, as we covered earlier, that's where it kind of all went wrong. But that was the absolute peak for him. I mean, it was Die Hard on a boat, and he did John McClane with martial arts really, really well. I mean, again,
and Andrew Davis, top-notch director. He had a top-class director. Having said that, David, I hope I'm saying it right, Malmuth, David Malmuth, he did Nighthawks, which is a cracking thriller with Stallone and Rutger Hauer.
Billy D. Williams,
and Rutger Hauer. It's a crack. So he knows, he's had good directors. He's had good people around him. I just find it a shame that if you look at the way movies go, to me, if Hard to Kill had been released first, then Above the Law, we'd have had the upward grade towards Marked for Death, Out for Justice. But we get Nico and you think, wow, what a debut, blip. And then we go up again.
Yeah, and see, I don't. If Hard to Kill came out first, I don't think you would have got Nico, and you certainly wouldn't have got Marked for Death. Although saying that, Hard to Kill did so big box office, that's effectively what gave us Marked for Death, and then Under Siege, and then etc. And Out for Justice, Under Siege, etc. It was his career's an odd one, isn't it? I mean, he really was. Literally, in the sea of the next big things, he was the next big thing. I mean, he really was the man of the 90s. So here we go. So the first one's Above the Law, we've covered. Hard to the Kill, we're talking about now, was 1990. Then Marked for Death, 90. Out for Justice, 91. 92 was Under Siege, which, as we've said, is the zenith. Then he goes to On Deadly Ground. where I'm looking at his character names. These are ridiculous. He was called Forrest Taft in On Deadly Ground. I mean, goodness sake. Anyway, so that's 94. 95, Under Siege 2, which did abysmally, but I kind of enjoy in a kind of sadomasochistic way. Then came 96, which was probably, I would argue, the last of his big moments at cinema, with firstly Executive Decision. Now, this is a film he likes to have expunged from his record because he dies in the film. And then finally, also in 96, was The Glimmer Man, which was with one of the Wayans brothers. Marlon, was it? Marlon Wayans, or was it his Damon Wayans? It was one of the Wayans brothers. Let's just double check. Oh, it was Keenan Ivory Wayans. It was the dad. It was Keenan Ivory Wayans. That one was pretty good. Then everything after that is just shocking.
It's such a crime because, as I said, he had the world at his feet there, and he gave us something new and different. And you and I were discussing how we had immediately the lookalikes like Thomas Ian Griffith come along, even wear the same coat. And then what did Chuck Norris do? The Hitman. The Hitman was out for justice.
Yeah, it was. And he did The Hero and the Terror, which was, well, that's something we can cover one day. God, that was nonsense. And then you had Dolph Lundgren. Dolph Lundgren at this point was rising up as well because he had Dark Angel or I Come in Peace, another film that had its title changed, like Come in Peace.
I come in peace. Dolph Lundgren.
And you go in pieces.
Dark Angel.
With Matthias
Hughes.
Yeah, he's brilliant. He is
brilliant.
And then, so it's crazy. So with this film, I suppose we ought to give it a cheese rating. And unfortunately, I don't think this one stands the test of time at all.
No, mate.
I think this struggles. I mean, for me, I'm looking at a 6. I'm struggling to give it anything higher than a 6. I don't think it's that terrible that it goes way below that. I mean, I don't know where you are.
I'm going to go 6.5 for the last 30 minutes. And as I said to you, I think this is the first one, and I'm glad we're both in agreement, where the nostalgia, the warm and fuzzy factor doesn't help it much.
No. I think if we'd have done Mark for Death, it might have been a bit different, but we'll cover that in a later one, I think. I think that deserves its own show as well, Mark for Death at some point. So, but yeah, no, I think we're agreed 6.5. So we'll call it 6 because I'm not doing halves. Because it's too much pain doing the graphics. But yeah, I do proper graphics. It's a shame really because the Seagal, really was, again, he was another staple of the turn of the decade.
You can take that to the bank.
I think that's where we're at with that one. So there's not too much more to say because we'll come back to Seagal later on, I think. So it leaves us with where are we going next? As it's your turn this turn, Malcolm. So I want to know where we're going next.
Well, we've been looking at the icons of a certain type of cinema. The obvious one, who ranks totally, as you said, alongside Schwarzenegger, is Stallone. So my thoughts are leave him a bit because he is the big A-list. Let's look at that. Those that were just below the level. We looked at Van Damme, we looked at Seagal, and we looked at, as I was saying to you in a previous conversation, guys that came out fully formed. Now let's look at a guy that had to fight for the recognition and is now sort of like an absolute legend, the one and only Mr. Chuck Norris. His was a different story, totally different, to the point now, as I said, we've got the Chuck Norris we all know about it,
the jokes.
Rest on the seventh day, Chuck told him to stop, all those sort of things. He's become an absolute icon now, but he had to fight for all that. And it was only, as you and I were discussing on some of our many occasions, when Cannon sort of picked him up, took him under their wing. We've got so much. Get to the Chedda has got to thank Cannon for so much.
An entire series, quite probably.
At the end of the day, Chuck Norris, because he had that early blaze of glory with Where the Dragon with Bruce Lee, still holds up as one of the greatest action sequences of all time. But then he had to go through so much dross to suddenly become this action hero in his later life, not late as in old, but later life than many of them. And at the epitome of that, for me, the peak of his powers when he was the all-American icon, the red, white, and blue Mr. America that everyone loved, was Invasion USA. Absolutely. Even down to the title, Matt, Invasion USA.
Chuck Norris. Invasion USA.
One of of the early gems in his marvelous canon career.
It sounds exciting. Now, for anybody who wants to join us on this journey with Invasion USA, it is currently unavailable on any streaming platform whatsoever. So you're going to have to dive a little deeper, find your uncle's VHS collection in the loft somewhere. There's bound to be a copy of Invasion USA in there somewhere. Get down a boot fair, it'll be on DVD, or you can buy it on eBay, I'm sure, or one of the other many selling platforms. So to join us, you're going to have to dig a little bit deep. We're taking you some homework to find Invasion USA. I may actually turn up in double denim for the next one, I think, and a couple of Uzis while we're sitting there talking. I think that because that was the image of that era, wasn't it? It was the double denim, the hairy chest, the double guns. Yeah, it was a pretty cool image. Whether you like the film or not, it's a pretty cool image. So it still is. So next time we meet, Mr. Martin, we will be discussing Chuck Norris's Invasion USA. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to watch our previous episodes. And we will see you all very soon on Get to the Cheddar.
Great stuff.
Would you like little pussy, JD?